Hello and welcome to the Tech on Toast podcast. I'm Chris Fletcher, presenter and editor of Tech on Toast. Today we'll be kicking off our focus series of episodes dedicated to fueling business growth through innovative, accessible technology. To help navigate this topic across the year, Tech on Toast is teaming up with our friends at Dojo, a payments provider dedicated to empowering businesses as they grow and scale to new heights. Each week, you'll hear from an industry professional and Dojo expert who will unlock key insights and provide actionable takeaways that'll help you discover new innovations within the market, understand key business challenges, and most importantly, learn how to solve them. Enjoy the show. Welcome everyone to the next episode of Tech on Toast podcast. And this week we're delighted we're hosting a special podcast with our friends at Dojo. And we're joined by Cass Coulton.
Hello.
Cass Coulton, Senior Insight Manager at Dojo. Ryan Joacovides, Director at F1 Arcade Pasture. Welcome, guys. How are you?
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, you are both most welcome. And Cass, tell us a little bit about you first. Where are you from? How did you end up here?
Sure. Well, hello. My name is Cass. I'm a Senior Insight Manager at Dojo. As a team, we exist to inform the product and company strategy. So we spend a lot of time researching our customers as well as products and the current industry. And what I really love about my job is I get to spend a lot of time speaking to people in the industry. And it's genuinely so exciting. I get goosebumps talking to them. They're so, business decision makers. They're so inspiring, and I just love hearing from them and thinking about how, their challenges and their pain points can really kind of translate into something that we can improve in our product and services.
You guys, you've got the important role, right? You people can come up with information to help other people build what we need to fix our problems.
Exactly.
That's a really convoluted way of saying it, but there you go.
Yeah.
But, and I know you've been, and you eat out a lot, right? You're out at Pasture the other day, I think, in one of Ryan's places before we get to Ryan. But how was that?
Yeah, we've got a Bristol office, and we went to Pasture for a team lunch, and it was amazing. The food was so good.
She has to say that. You're sitting there. Yeah. And where are you from originally? Because I'm not hearing a Bristol or London accent.
No, I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, very nice. Sorry for your loss to be here. We apologise.
I'm heading back on Friday.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I'm getting married in a few weeks.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow. Thank you.
There you go.
And it's summer over there, yeah?
Yeah. So
I
summer
think it's
wedding.
always summer.
Not true. Not if
Really?
you've ever been to Melbourne.
Okay.
It's 4 seasons in one day. Yeah.
Well, welcome very much. Really happy to have you here. And Ryan, I met you actually for the first time a few weeks ago. But welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Tell us who you are and what you do.
So I've kind of been growing up in hospitality since I was a kid. So I used to be the MD of a couple of different restaurant groups. So people would have heard of Jamie Oliver Restaurant Group. So I used to run the UK restaurants for many years, back when
You were my competitor, right?
I was, yeah.
You were a pain in my backside. I was at college years.
And then after a couple of other big jobs, I've kind of gone it alone and taken on more project work. So I kind of was a original founder and partner in Pasture, which is a steakhouse restaurant in Bristol, but also in Cardiff. And there's now offshoots of that. So there's like 4 sites over the 2 cities, and it's all showcasing Sam Elliott, who is the chef owner behind it. And
amazing place.
His food is amazing, and basically it's his special thing, and we kind of try to facilitate that and help.
And you can't get into Cardiff. You can't. I mean,
I can't get in.
I'm still trying. I've said this twice.
Yeah,
I'm just waiting, right?
I will try my best. But it isn't easy, which is a great thing, and I don't take that lightly. And then I've been doing lots of different kind of projects, mainly trying to work with businesses that are doing some exciting stuff in the space. So I'm currently a director / contractor with F1 Arcade. Joined them about a couple of months after they opened in London. Helped build a team and get the London venue rocking and rolling, and then getting them ready for scale. So we've just opened in Birmingham, in Paradise, opposite Albert Schloss, which opened just before Christmas. We're gearing up now to get the team ready to open in Boston in April.
Wow.
And then
Boston, Newcastle or Boston, US?
Boston, US, not Boston, Newcastle.
Okay.
But maybe Newcastle in the future.
Sorry for them, but yeah.
And then world domination after that. So that's been an amazing project. And the competitive socializing space or social gaming, I haven't done before.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very much picking and choosing a project where it's exciting and I'm learning as well as being able to add some value.
And I think that's the exciting thing about the industry, right? There is such a breadth. I mean, within this room, we have different experiences already of different sectors, different verticals of the industry. And the reason we want to talk today was talk about the challenges that people face with growth in not just this year, but beyond. And obviously the P word happened a few years ago, which affected everybody. But actually, it's, you know, some light has come out of it, some understanding of how to operate businesses. And I think the experiential side of the industry has really popped up, which is exciting. And Cass, particularly because you spend a lot of time looking not just amongst your customer base, but across the wider industry in terms of what the press is saying, what's happening in the industry generally, and you're building a picture of what, I suppose, Dojo can do to support people. Can you share some recent insight, I suppose, from last year, kind of coming into this year? And then, Ryan, it'd be really great to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, great. I think the word that really comes to mind is resilience. I know that's a little bit overused, but I think what we're hearing here is like hospitality is really leading the way on the post-pandemic recovery. UK Hospitality recently released some stats to show that there was, in 2023, the hospitality industry grew to 56 billion, up from 43 billion pre-pandemic. And we also hear from businesses that the festive period that's just passed was actually really positive, much better than they were expecting, which I think was kind of a much needed sort of boost to the hospitality industry. We've also seen some data to show that consumers, so the Barclaycard consumer spend data that showed that consumers were spending more in bars, pubs and clubs. So it felt like a relatively smooth Christmas compared to previous years. Yeah, and this was also reflected in our face-to-face card transaction data, which showed actually a 10% increase when comparing like-for-like data in 2022. I'm really conscious that it's not the full picture. There is a lot happening.
No, but it's great to get... I think sometimes, because someone once told me, one of my old bosses, always lead with the data, right? So always start with the data to give you some... And as you get more strategic and more senior in the industry, you tend to... That does form your opinion or help you form your opinion better, and then obviously you base it on experience you have around you. And Ryan... You're both strategically and operationally involved in these businesses you mentioned now, but your experience is also really valid, right? What you've gone through. Well, I suppose what are you seeing in barriers in terms of what you learnt last year going into this year?
So just echoing what you said, December or the end of the year was a lot better. So people traded up, albeit slightly skewed because the year before there was train strikes and there was also not a lot of confidence. So there was good trade. People felt pretty happy with their kind of sales level. But I think where things have shifted post-COVID is people are being even more careful with their money. So I think it comes down to a real reason to visit a place. So yes, I feel as a whole industry, there's a lot more concepts that have come into the space, which again looks like we've had overall growth. But the attrition of some of the smaller businesses out there is probably at an all-time high. And the way I kind of look at it is it feels like the middle ground is kind of being lost a little bit. So if you've got something experiential or something special, people are still spending their money. Very, very casual and everyday and at a value price point, people are still spending their money. But there's a whole middle ground where I think they're the ones that are kind of getting lost, or there's a lot of closures within that.
Yeah, the squeezed middle, isn't it, that they call it? And I think it used to be when casual dining grew in the 90s, God, I'm showing my age, but when casual dining grew in the 90s and really popped up into the 2000s, you kind of saw this the middle was really strong. And I actually think what's happening now is that, as you said, Cass, then actually the value of your pound is so much more important than it was even 6 months ago, actually, because people are coming out again. But it's, as you said, it's like more important. I went to F1 Arcade with Kieran recently, and we were having a go, and I think we spent about 25 quid for 3 races, a few drinks and whatnot, and we loved it, and we didn't question the value at all. But I've had other recent experiences in other venues and different things where I've been like, wow, that wasn't value for money. And I think that's what's coming down to. And Cass, your data really backs that up, doesn't it? I mean, looking at what people are saying, and I think there was a point here about supply cost and inflation still being a major concern for businesses. And you're still feeling that, Ryan, right? The pressure of that coming in.
Yeah, so the cost of goods is crazy at the moment. So in the old days, you used to have a particular...
Didn't have to say old.
You used to have a particular GP that you would be targeting for food and drink, but those figures would be kind of a pipe dream for most businesses now, because there's 2 things with it. The cost of goods are so high, but there's only so much that you can pass on to the guests.
Yeah.
Because it comes down to whether something is worth buying. at that retail price, regardless of what your margin is. If you sold everything for the margin that you needed it to be, we would already be at £8.50, £9 pints now. We would, it would be £25 for a bowl of pasta, but no one's going, from a perceived value point of view, no one's going to spend that money. So it is being pinched. But I think the other part of it as well is the people side of it. So part of a few businesses of where they've set themselves apart have been trying to really put money and emphasis into their people, so to make sure that they get the best talent, paying the best, which is sort of like the first step, and obviously then making sure that the environment is good. But with the minimum wage going up now, it closes that gap. So where there have been people that have been overall very good payers, suddenly there's no real difference between them and some of the other smaller businesses. So there really isn't anywhere to go. So there's another squeeze to come from April, which is a bit of a worry.
Deep joy, thank you. And Cass, I mean, you're a consumer as well as managing insight and gathering insight. You're a consumer. Are you treating it the same when you're going out? I mean, you're about to get married. Obviously, you're planning for that. You've got budget around that. Does it, when you're out and about, are you kind of valuing your spend more than you used to?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I had an experience recently where I went out and, we were doing our dance classes for the wedding. We decided to pop into a local restaurant in Teddington High Street, really, really lovely place called Ruba. Shout out to Ruba. I've never been there before, but I think for me, what really made the evening, the food was delicious, but the people were just so lovely and so forthcoming and really intuitive to making sure that we were having a nice time and having a really good experience. We had a really loud, rowdy group next to us that kind of shuffled our table away a little bit. And I think it's those kind of little moments that you do have at hospitality venues that really make it. There's a consumer confidence barometer, which is led by GfK, and this helps to measure how confident consumers are feeling about their finances and the economy. And it hit a historic low, this won't be a surprise to anyone, in September 2022, and it's slowly rebuilding. And I think this is kind of it's getting better. I think what's really interesting, though, the British Retail Consortium also released some data recently to show that they'd had a really lacklustre Christmas, so people weren't spending as much. And I think coupled with this idea of people were still going to hospitality venues, I think it really shows that, like we've kind of spoken about, there's kind of a more discerning consumer. So they're really thinking about where they want to spend their money. They're making those tough decisions about that. And I think because of that, they're sort of more focused on the experiences versus material goods.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of reflected when you were saying before, Ryan, about the fact that people are making choices. It's quite weird because your two businesses that you're involved in right now are very, I would say, at different ends of the spectrum. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, completely different ends of the spectrum. You've got one which is all centred around technology and gaming, but then there's also great food and drink. But then the other is literally, I guess, pure hospitality. It's food-led. It's how you're being made to feel, and it's somewhere to go for a special occasion.
Yeah, and I think that feedback or that discerning customer, as you mentioned then, is kind of sitting in, I suppose, in the pasture bracket more in the fact that they are really offering themselves up to you, saying, "Hey, look, we're spending, because it's not cheap per se, but it's a valuable experience." And is that the feedback you're getting from people that actually they really value that?
Yeah, 100%. We are pretty blown away with the amount of people that come back, and I think that's how most businesses should benchmark how well they're doing, is repeat visits.
Yeah, for sure.
In the nicest way, with good marketing, you can get people to cross the threshold and come into your venue, but getting them to come back is everything. And that's really the biggest compliment that you can get. And the fact that it's a struggle, and there was an article in the Bristol Post that it's one of the hardest restaurants to book into, people don't take that lightly. It is, but 5 years down the line, it's busier than it ever has been. And a lot of that is down to maintaining the quality in terms of food. It's really holding on to the core team. So the service you get, the welcome you get, the familiar faces, they're all the things, especially for a local restaurant, that you want to have. And then that whole how you make people feel. Every meeting that Sam has with the team is all focused around delivering an experience and over-delivering. And they nail it. They absolutely nail it. I'd love to be even a bigger part of it. But they've got it locked down really well.
And the word you used before, Cass, resilience, right at the start of the podcast, actually applies to what, you just talked about the past 5 years. I know you've got the pandemic in the middle of all that, but it's really interesting that hospitality, when you're good at it or when the product is great, it is almost bulletproof, I would say, in terms of, like, a great local restaurant will always be a great local restaurant until someone else buys it or someone else leaves or the local waiter that you've known for years moves on. I think that resilience is something that's key within the industry and is maintained generally across the board, but I suppose it's been particularly tough the last few years. And in terms of what we're looking at as we go into 2024, if you had to, Cass, there's 3 things I hate most in hospitality. And me and Ryan talked about this the week. It's waiting at the door, waiting to sit, waiting to order and waiting to pay. They're the 3 things that drive me insane. And they're 3 things I've always wondered, why can't we do a better job at automating it, or why can't we do a better job at making it go quicker? And I think you talked about experience then, and Sam talking to the team about that delivery, making sure that we used to play a game at Carluccio's. You were only allowed to leave the customer for 30 seconds on the front door. Otherwise, you got in big trouble. So we used to walk around our sites counting how many seconds that person was sat on the doormat. What are the business you're speaking to and telling you in terms of what helped them drive growth?
Yeah, you're definitely not alone.
That's good. I'm alone in most things. That's one I can count with some friends.
Yeah, and interestingly, from some of the businesses I speak to, that is also kind of their standard as well. They think the worst thing you can do is make a customer wait for their bill, for the menu, whatever it might be. And from our research, what we've really found is that the most successful businesses are really focused on improving and enhancing their everyday offer. And this comes in the form of kind of operational efficiency. They're sort of thinking about what are the things that I can use at front of house and back of house that can really tighten things up and make these kind of micro tweaks across the day that really add up over time. As an extreme example, I was speaking to a business, must have been end of last year, and they were talking about how important this was to them, and the fact that they'd even changed the way that their toilets were laid out so that customers weren't waiting for a toilet, so everything was kind of really running smoothly. But as a more kind of practical or common example,
that could get quite expensive.
The most common ways I hear about this is through integrations, so combining particularly your EPOS and card machine. And how much time that can sort of save. You're not having to sort of run back between the till and that sort of thing. And I guess this is kind of a nice segue into sort of talking a little bit about our sort of new product, Dojo Pocket, which kind of takes it that step further. And it really helps to sort of combine your existing EPOS with a card machine. So you're not doing that sort of that dance between the till and the EPOS.
Trust me, I mean, I mentioned the 90s to you. I mean, I was doing the dance between the swipey thing, let alone running around. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. That was on camera. Everyone can see how old I am again. But I think it's huge, right? That because there's the elements I talked about. Waiting to order, it's difficult. In Pasture's example, it is a human, right? So it's we're not even going to bother affecting that. Waiting at the door again, that's a human element. But I do think at payment, I do think at that transaction, I will change my mind based on that. Depends how long it takes to arrive, right? I'm going to pay my bill. I'm going to leave a tip. I've had a great time, and then within that. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes, sometimes extremes 10, it gets worse.
One thing to mention is time goes super quick in restaurants and bars. So you may wait a minute at the door, but it feels like half an hour. If you need to order and you're hungry, a minute, again, it's like I've been waiting an hour. So time does work completely differently. And when I've tried to check...
That's so true.
But when I've trained teams in the past, that's how you have to get into the psyche of that and say, when people come in here, then they're on some kind of dog time where everything goes 7 times as fast. So you may have only been a minute, but you still need to say, sorry, I've left you waiting, because they will feel like it's been 20.
Yeah, if you ever stand someone at the door, we used to do this, like for 60 seconds, so just stand there, no one talks to them, like we put a waiter on the door. It feels like forever. And the same at payment, right? When you're sitting there, and you've had a great, especially if you've got kids as well, but when you sit there waiting to pay, that period of time just goes on and on. But you sit there thinking, I just want to go. I just need to go.
All of us, and this is something I mentioned before when we spoke, everyone in today's world is a bit time deficient. So everyone's got a million things that they're juggling, and if they do come and spend some time in a restaurant or a bar or in whatever guise, then time is something that causes stress to people. And I would say the biggest thing, and I find it, even though I work in the industry, when I want to pay the bill, And I think that's the biggest thing is when I ask for the bill, I don't want the bill to look at the bill and chat about the bill. I mean, I want to pay. There's no
I'm not
one
going to negotiate.
No one's ever asked for the bill because they want to sit with it for half an hour and have a chat. And that's again an old school mentality.
But isn't that a weird step of service that we have? That we have that. Here's the bill. We'll leave you with it just to be depressed for a bit. To realise
people think it's being polite. It's like I don't want to hassle you. It's like go over with the machine, put the bill down. Do you want to pay straight away or do you want me to come back? And it should be that simple, but I think that is where you can actually completely ruin the experience. Because if someone has to get going and they've asked for the bill, taking 10, 15 minutes of their life, it feels like you're taking something away from them.
And I don't know if you agree, Cass, but my mum always taught me first impressions are really important, right? She always said to me, when you meet someone the first time, Chris, it's really important you make a good impression from a really young boy. But when I went into hospitality, I always felt like the last impression was the most important thing you had. And I think the bit where Ryan or you are leaving my restaurant, to be able to say to you, thanks for coming, because I do genuinely appreciate it.
I think when I speak to a lot of businesses, they say that kind of, I guess one of the barriers as well to kind of like tech adoption is taking away from the customer experience.
Yeah.
And there's a concern there if you are speeding through that process, then you're actually taking away something where you're being able to give that customer an extra couple of moments. But I think like you guys are right, like you just want to pay and go. And
how do you deal with it in your businesses without putting you on the spot?
Integrated machines are important, which means you can pull down the bill straight away. So it does take a step. The actual service step is if you're asked for the bill, you bring the payment over at that time and ask if they want to pay straight away. And then the other part to it sounds really silly is have lots of PDQ machines. So you're never having to wait because it's a bugbear. And honestly, as a guest, I don't care if someone else is paying. It's like if I want to pay, I need to go straight away. I may need to go and get a train.
Yeah.
So grab a machine, and no one wants to hear, I'll just take this payment, or
it's
the
on
machine's
charge.
over there, or it's on charge,
Yeah.
or it just dies.
Yeah,
so
it's really bad. And the pocket, I'm guessing, fits in your pocket.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have a smartphone on me, but it's like the same size. Yeah, there you go.
Pulls in the bill and the orders.
Yeah, exactly. So it works with your kind of existing EPOS as long as there's integrations.
Let's not get into that chat. That's another hour.
Yeah, that's not for me. And it's all pulls in your payments and you can order on there as well. So you're not having to sort of go back and forth between the till system, the card machine. You can serve multiple people as well. You know how like when you're at a cafe and someone's trying to serve someone else and they've got to run between tables and kind of eliminates again that dance.
Well, it's like a pass off, isn't it? You pass the check off and then do another one and pass the check off and come back and close it. That's very cool. Look, I think it's riveting, and I know I've only got you two for a limited amount of time today, so I appreciate your time. And Ryan, just from your point of view, going into the next year, what's the one big barrier, I suppose, that you face in terms of all your business? I'm sure you might not have one, you might have multiple, but is there one particular thing that you're kind of thinking, this is going to be a challenge this year, I need to get over it, or in a positive light? It doesn't have to be a negative thing.
I think it's something that's the same every year, and it's making sure that the people you have in the business are engaged, and you're keeping hold of your superstars and giving them a reason to come back every day, and giving them a reason and a pathway for whatever they want to achieve. I've always kind of said there are lots of people come into hospitality for lots of different reasons, and some people don't even like the word hospitality, but this industry.
Yeah.
And some people are in it for a job, some people are in it for a career. But my view is, whatever your pathway, it should be a lot of fun. And if you're here for a job, it should be the most fun job you've had. And if you're here for a career, there needs to be some steps or something for you to get out of it. So I think that's absolutely critical. And I think where some really good businesses in the past have struggled to keep hold of their good people is they don't have that career pathway. So as a business, if they're not growing and it is one really lovely neighborhood restaurant and they get some good people in, it becomes a bit transient because those people will need to go somewhere else that is growing. So for me, and it's something because I really want to work with great people, I try to align myself with businesses that are doing the right thing but also are growing, because if you stand still, you're going backwards.
Nobody stands still.
No. So you have to be moving forward, or otherwise you're never going to keep hold of great people. You can pay them more and more and more, but then there gets to an economic point where you can't.
I love that. And Cass, with what you do, you're using, I suppose, all the research you do in terms of internally and externally, you're using that then to develop Dojo's products and advise, I suppose, around what the industry is saying and what, I suppose, people like Ryan are going through. And I suppose this year, God knows what will happen this year, but this year more and more of that insight will come in. Will you further use that to drive innovation within the business? Is that how you work?
Yeah, absolutely. We are quite a big team now of researchers.
I've met most of them. Yeah, there's a lot.
But our research team, like we've got like a central insights team, so we're focusing more on like what's happening in the industry, and then we've got people who are product specific, and they're focusing on what's next for the product. What are our customer pain points? We have this amazing thing called the wall of pain where we track all the
horrific.
things. I know it sound horrific, but it's really kind of keeping track of what is the industry saying, what are their pain points, and that's not just to do with payments. It's beyond that.
Yeah.
What can we do to better support their needs as they're growing businesses.
I love that. So sorry, I don't love pain. I love the fact that you're looking at it from a holistic point of view rather than just down your narrow view of payments, for instance. You're looking at it as a wider thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of essential. It needs to be a sort of ecosystem. You need to think about it really holistically. I think you've nailed it there.
Look, really nice to meet you. Ryan, if people want to get hold of you and they hear your dulcet tones and they think, oh, I'd like to chat to Ryan, can they reach out on LinkedIn, or what's the best way to...
Yeah, give me a shout on LinkedIn. I try to reply to everyone I can.
Okay, good. Good. And same for you, Cass. I mean, I don't want to give out your email address, but if they're looking for some advice around Dojo, or at least some insight that you guys have, and you have a lot of it, can they get hold of you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's best.
Good old LinkedIn. It's a safe place to be. All right, look, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We'll be back next month with another episode, and that's it. Say bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today. I really hope you enjoyed our first of our series collaboration with Dojo. As a payments platform designed for the experience economy, Dojo helps businesses increase efficiency and improve customer experience. If you're curious about growing your business with a robust, reliable, and resilient payments platform, head to the dojo.tech website now. Tune into the rest of our series for even more insights from our Dojo experts and industry guests, all designed to empower you in taking your business to the next level. See you soon.